All right, welcome back, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed our nutrition break, generously sponsored by Engineers and Geoscientists BC, and I hope you've all had an opportunity to connect with our exhibitors. Just before we get started, my name is Logan Wong. I'm a project specialist at C3, and I have the distinct honor of working with Dallas and Sarah to build out the conference program as a program coordinator this year. We're going to get right into our second panel of the day, titled Indigenous Partnerships Across Canada, where we'll hear about collaborative efforts in the forestry sector between Domtar and their Indigenous partners. As a reminder, audience members can submit questions for our speakers through Slido. Instructions should be on the screen behind me, and they're also in the first page of your printed program. It's now my pleasure to introduce our moderator for this panel, Lana Wilhelm, Director of Indigenous Relations from Domtar, and her panelists to the stage. Let's give them a warm welcome.
On behalf of the team at Domtar, we welcome you today to the panel event, Indigenous Partnership Across Canada.
Au nom de l'équipe de Domtar, nous vous souhaitons la bienvenue à cette table ronde sur les partenariats autochtones au Canada.
Business partnerships between Indigenous and non-Indigenous companies are not only a step towards economic reconciliation,
they also offer the opportunity to create mutual benefit, fueling a new and powerful economy for Canada.
At Domtar, we're committed to building partnerships grounded in respect for Indigenous peoples' rights, culture, and connections to the land.
From north to south and east to west.
Venant de la nation Innu de Masteriache au Québec.
To Dallan contracting at the Fort William First Nation.
From our partnership with Meadow Tribal Council Industrial Investments in Saskatchewan.
To the Tla'amin Nation on the south coast of British Columbia.
We are honored that our partners have joined us here today
for a discussion on the challenges and opportunities that come with building strong partnerships.
On behalf of everyone at Domtar,
au nom de tout le monde chez Domtar,
we can't wait to share these partnership stories with you.
Well, good morning, everyone. So excited to be here, and of course I'd like to extend our gratitude to Elder Lollygood for this morning, opening this up in a really good way. And of course we'd love to acknowledge our privilege and honor to be welcomed into the sacred territory of the Tla'amin First Nation today. My name is Lana Wilhelm. I'm a forester here in BC, and I'm the moderator for the discussion today, Indigenous Partnerships Across Canada. A bit about Domtar, as you saw in the welcoming video, I have a lot of colleagues and leaders across Canada who are excited about the privilege of an opportunity to showcase our work today, some of whom are with us today as well. So very excited about that. But we also take that privilege seriously. Since integrating 3 large companies, Paper Excellence, Resolute, and Domtar over the last couple of years, we're now the biggest pulp and paper company across Canada. And when you have that big of a footprint, you have that big of a responsibility to be good partners, to be good neighbors. And we're keenly aware of that responsibility in our operations. And so this year, though we're integrating and we're looking at releasing a new Indigenous relations policy, as we all know in this room, policy frameworks, awesome to have, really important to help drive accountability, but really where the gold is in the actions, or how we're walking the talk of that accountability. And we learn what worked and what didn't through listening to our partners of where we have gaps, where we need to improve, and that echoes what we're going to do in this 40-odd minutes here today. So we have our partnerships across Quebec, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and BC. I'm going to introduce very quickly all 4 of our partner representatives, And after, they can briefly introduce, using slides, a little bit of those partnerships. Starting with BC, Erik Blaney from the Tla'amin Nation, legislator, wears a lot of hats as most capable people in community, fearless elk hunter. And I'm personally grateful for the work that Erik has done with myself and our company in holding us accountable of how to do the right things through some pretty difficult conversations. So super glad that Erik was able to carve out of his busy schedule today. Next, we have Tina Rasmussen from northern Saskatchewan. Thankfully made it through. It sounds like the fires are dying down, and really glad to have Tina here. Tina's a Chief Business Officer for the Meadow Lake Tribal Council in northern Saskatchewan, and brings a wealth and a depth of experience. And every time I hear Tina speak, I learn, and I anticipate that also today. So welcome to Tina from the Flying Dust First Nation. Next, we have Dale Levesque from Fort William First Nation, way up there in northwestern Ontario, where there's a few bugs sometimes at this time of year. Dale is the general manager of Dallan LP Contracting. He's boots on the ground, tons of experience. And just a quick note, yesterday my BC colleagues and I took Dale out to see our big, beautiful trees here on Vancouver Island. And afterwards, Dale confessed that he's excited enough to be on this panel that he compares it to jumping out of a plane. So hopefully we can get some great questions from the audience for Dale and all of us to match that excitement. So thank you, Dale, for being here. And last but certainly not least, Alexandre Girard from the Pekuakamiulnuatsh, so sorry, and from First Nation there in Quebec, La Belle Province. And he is the general manager of Aishkatsh, the group of forestry contractors, forest management, also a wealth of experience. And I certainly raise my hands in respect for Alexandre, as he is doing all of this today in his second language. So really welcome that and appreciate that, Alexandre. So let's go back to BC here. Erik, it would be, let's start with you. If we could cue you up here to talk about a really unique partnership of when a company divests. And this, of course, we're talking about the Stale Mill site and the T-Squat land reacquisition agreement. So, Erik, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Lana, and thank you, everybody. It's great to be here. The slide that we're looking at right here is something that we put together that represents the history of our people on the mill site. So the top left picture that I'm looking at here is the T-Squat River in its natural form before it was dammed in 1911 to create the hydroelectricity needed to power the mill. The top right picture is the damming process of the river. And the picture in the top middle is my great-great-great-great-grandfather standing with two mortuary poles that stood above that dam where our people were laid to rest. I'm happy to say that we just repatriated those poles back to the community in the last week. You probably saw that on the news. So, yeah, thank you. So the fight for land back, for me, goes back 5 generations, as my great-great-great-grandfather standing there with the rifle in his last stand protecting those mortuary poles. So we unfortunately lost that site in the late 1800s. It was picked up. It became the largest pulp and paper mill in the world with 4,500 employees. And when Domtar called about the closing of the mill, we jumped into action and said, okay, well, now it's time for land back. So the first conversation I had with Lana was around reconciliation, and this is when the mill was still going. And what does reconciliation mean? And I said, well, change the name from Powell River to T-Squat. That was done. Let us have a burning down at the site, which we did. We burned food for the ancestors. We talked about procurement and contract opportunities and job opportunities. And then the fourth big one on my list was land back. We are going to own that village site back, and we're going to have boots on the ground there again. So I'm proud to say that we got our APA signed. I am the new project manager. Careful what you wish for. I'm now down there every day dealing with the nightmares of a 100-year-old mill site. Sunk my boat there yesterday. It's a challenge, but we have the land back, and I can say the 5-generation fight is now over, and here we are with the land back and looking at the current opportunities that exist for our nation on the lands. So this is the river here now that shows the footprint of the mill site and our once great river, which was one of the largest sockeye runs in BC at the time before it was dammed. Next slide. And here's a historic memorandum of understanding that we created with the province of BC to safeguard the site, to create an open door with the provincial government on some of the barriers that we were having around archaeological finds on the site and getting permits, creating economic development opportunities with the resources of the water, and really showing that we needed to work together to create joint stewardship of this land. And it wasn't just going to benefit our people, but the region and the province as a whole. So what you'll see here is I've got tummuth, and I spread the tummuth on the foot of the youngest Tla'amin Nation citizen. And the baby signed the declaration MOU with their foot. And then we had the premier also take his shoe off, and I was going to make him sign with his foot, but he's like 6'7", and his foot wouldn't fit on the page, so we allowed him to just sign with a pen. There's one more slide. And then this is basically where we're at right now. So we're basically at this master planning process at looking at what we can do with the site. So it's very exciting that 140 years our people were pushed to the side. We had zero decision making. We saw, billions, if not trillions of dollars worth of lumber and resources extracted from our land, and we got nothing. So having Domtar step up to do the right thing and help us get the site back, but also provide some indemnity, provide the work that needs to be done around the archaeological sites and the environmental issues that we're having down there to ensure that we have good economic development opportunities going forward has been huge, and it started from some very challenging discussions. I think I had to use what my grandma says with Lana a few times, listen, plug one ear, let it sink in, right? But when you're dealing with shareholders on a scale of a corporation versus community shareholders, of citizens who are going to be here for thousands of years, it's a very different conversation. But that's what we're dealing with, and that's the kind of partnership that we have.
Thanks, Erik. Like you say, lots of challenges and themes of trust, taking the time and listening. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your patience. On to Tina at the Meadow Lake Tribal Council. Tina, if you wouldn't mind discussing a bit of your overview.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for the invitation to be here in your tribal territory. As Lana introduced, I come from Treaty 6 territory. I'm a Cree from Flying Dust First Nation. The Meadow Lake Tribal Council was formed back in 1981. 9 nations came together, 5 Cree nations, 4 Dene nations. So those of you that are in tribal governance, to understand that distinct tribal or band entities, distinct languages, distinct cultural entities all came together because they wanted to push forward on how do we do things better together. So together since 1981. You can just keep going. The first business that Meadow Lake Tribal Council purchased, because in our territory, in our forestry area, we live in the boreal forest. That's our backyard. That's our homelands. Forestry interests are given to industrial facilities, not to First Nations communities. So we could not control our environmental sustainability in our territory unless we owned the industry. So our leadership over 40 years ago, purchased North Sask Forest Products. North Sask Forest Products now produces about 140 million board feet of stud lumber. It employs 120 people just in the mill. And 70% of all those people that work in that industry, in that mill, are Indigenous. So all of our companies you will see here that are related to forestry, our nations focus on 3 priorities. The first and most top priority is in environmental sustainability. We do nothing that we can't control what we're doing and can't put back what we need to Mother Earth. The second thing is job opportunities. These industries, they're expensive, markets are terrible, but they create a lot of jobs. And the third piece, and sometimes, you know, to our communities, not what they necessarily need, because we're not able to get a huge amount of revenue back to them, but the third priority obviously is these businesses have to stay afloat and revenue generation is important. So North Sask Forest Products, owned 100% by the 9 nations of the Meadow Lake Tribal Council. Northwind Forest Products, environmental sustainability, diversification of the wood basket. We needed somewhere for our small diameter softwood to go. So we purchased Northwind Forest Products, and this is a post and rail plant. And we just recently added a CCA treatment plant to this facility. Another 50 employees, at least 50% Indigenous, working in that facility. This is where our partnership comes in with Domtar. Domtar, together with the Meadow Lake Tribal Council, each own 50% interests in our forest management company called Mystic. Mystic is our engine that does all of our forest management planning, but it has an even greater role in terms of economic development. The economic development piece of this means that Saskatchewan has, and you'll see by some of my colleagues up here, not only Saskatchewan, but Mystic Management does all the forest management, plus they also do all of the contracting, the harvesters, the haulers, the reforestation, all of those things. That accounts for probably about 400 people that work out there on the land, and over 70% of those people in my traditional homeland that work in this field are Indigenous. And Mystic, in our partnership with Domtar, and their commitment to the way that as First Nations communities we insist on doing business, has allowed that to happen and has encouraged that to happen. One of the things that our elders said was, yeah, great, you're taking our natural resource, you're turning it into something, you're using it, you're creating job opportunities, but guess what, you guys? You're still failing because you are leaving waste. That sawmill, you know, awesome, but don't like the fact that you use an old beehive burner to burn all of that waste. So in 2022, we commissioned the MLTC Bioenergy Center. The Bioenergy Center produces 8.3 megawatts of electricity from the wood waste from our sawmill. It was specifically sized to meet our the waste from our sawmill. And we supply 6.6 megawatts of this to SaskPower as baseload energy. So you can kind of see in our forestry, we've taken a natural resource that's from our traditional lands, and we're building on it. Keep building, keep building, keep building, keep building, keep building. The next thing that's on our agenda, I didn't put a slide here on this, but we are looking at carbon capture and sequestration off of this biomass facility. This biomass facility, I was listening and so proud to hear when they were talking about people getting their power engineering. We have 15 full-time employees plus a manager, and 70 to 80% of those people are power engineers, and they're Indigenous. So.
Thanks, Tina. As you can imagine, we're only scratching the surface here. MLTC Industrial Investments, super diverse portfolio, but those themes of recruitment, procurement, and sustainability echo everything, and we are always learning from MLTC of the right thing to do in northern Saskatchewan operations. So now I'll pass over to Dale to talk a little bit about Dallan Forestry.
Good morning, everybody. I'll start off by saying I absolutely am nervous. I would have jumped out of the plane. And not only that, they took me to dinner last night, and I've never had seafood, and that's what they fed me, so I wasn't quite sure I was going to be here. Again, my name's Dale Levesque. I'm a partner in Dallan Forestry. Sorry, I made some notes here just because I knew I was going to get off topic with it, but Dallan Forestry is made up of a partnership between Tla'amin First Nations and Niggagusa-Missakanning and myself, Fort William First Nations band member. We currently, we're a 100% Indigenous owned company. We employ over 190 people with, I think it's 31% of the people are First Nations. From all over, not just in and around the community. We're located in northwestern Ontario, Thunder Bay, where we work for 3 sawmills, Domtar sawmills. We also do some paper mill work, trucking, and some building things, but today we're here to talk about the Domtar sawmill and the partnership we have there. We do everything from unloading all the product coming into the mill, feeding the mill with the wood, tree length, cut to length, to managing the lumber yard, to finishing the product and shipping it by rail and by truck. I've had a long relationship with them. I'll kind of go back to when we first started. It was in 2003 when Bowater owned the mill at the time. My wife actually lived in Thunder Bay, and she kind of called me and said I was in the mining industry. She said, I'm not coming back after school. You got to kind of leave Thunder Bay or leave Marathon and move to Thunder Bay. So sawmill had a job opening. It was a brand new sawmill. I applied for the position. I was lucky enough to be the first operator hired to that yard, which then allowed me in 2003 to build my way to a lead hand, to a supervisor, and then eventually to the general manager of the contracting company. In 2010, I purchased the company myself. Continue on working with Abby Bo, I think it was at the time. Had a great relationship, and with them for 7 years, so they knew what they were getting out of us, out of, I guess, my company at the time. And then I guess back in 2014 is when I got introduced to Tla'amin First Nations and Niggagusa-Missakanning. We call them Red Gut, just short form. We started the Dallan relationship. So Dallan's like DAL is Dale and LAN Lac-Ending. That's kind of how the Dallan company was formed. And from then we were successful in winning yard contracting tendered awards for Thunder Bay Pulp and Paper, Atakokan Sawmill, Ignace Sawmill, and that's how we got to where we are today. And I think the way we've been able to keep the success of our company is leadership with Domtar, working with them. They were always there to participate in any conversations we had and continue that growth. So, thank you.
Thanks, Dale. See, we do listen, maybe just in another jurisdiction. Thanks so much for that, Dale, and we're glad we didn't lose you to the airplane. So, but there's always more chances. Maybe tomorrow. So on to Alexandre from the Pekuakamiulnuatsh Nation. There, I've finally got that right. Thank you so much for your patience on that, Alexandre, with Aishkatsh Groupe.
Pekuakamiulnuatsh. Hi everyone, my name is Alexandre Girard. I'm a proud member of the Pekuakamiulnuatsh Nation. Like you said, 10 out of 10. Congratulations. As you can hear, it is not my first language, so please be gentle with me. I'm the general manager of Groupe Aishkatsh. In Nilweun, our language, it means going forward. We are a First Nation general forestry contractor based in Mashtewiyats, province of Quebec. Our activities cover forestry planning, management, timber harvesting, log hauling, and road construction. We give ourselves a mission to promote the Indigenous expertise in the forestry industry with a sustainable approach. Our vision is to act as a leader in sustainable management of the land and promote youth Indigenous development. And you can see our 5 values. My favorite one is the last one, it is fun. On the next one, here you can see the Pekuakami, which means flat lake, which is the name of the Lac Saint-Jean. We live in the Meadow, located on the shores of the Pekuakami. Our nation is based on around more than 11,000 members. 2,000 of them live directly in the community. On to the next. Per year, we harvest and hold more than 320,000 cubic meters of wood, and we construct more than 30 kilometers of road and repair more than 80. We employ 90 employees, around 65% Indigenous, 10% women. That makes us the biggest employer on the community, apart from the Tribal Council. It is 100% Indigenous leadership and ownership, and we give more than 4 million in wages to the community members in salaries. Our partnership with Domtar is through the Tribal Council, based around the PRO, which is the volume allocated to the community, around 250,000 cubic meters per year. But as you can see, we harvest and haul more in that. We also help Domtar with the operation consultation on the land to facilitate the relations with the land user and the ancestry families. And our partnership is based on 3 values: respect, trust, and faith. We work under the Quebec forest regime that is actually in place, that has been made in place in 2013. In Quebec, the government is the main authority managing public forest. It brings balance between economics, social, and environmental issues. It is the government that allows the annual volume that every industry is allowed to cut and to use and to transform in the industry at a sustainable harvest level. It also does the timber allocation to forestry company, which is composed of 75% of CAF, which is supply guarantees to the mills, and the 25% balance comes from the BMMB auction, the Timber Marketing Board, and the private properties. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. Obviously, very high level, 4 very distinct partnerships for very unique geographies and communities associated with. I would like to open up with a question for the whole panel now, which is to ask, what is the biggest challenge that your business is facing today? Yeah.
Okay, big challenge. Well, right now, obviously, if you turned on the news this morning, it's almost better just not to. There's so much going on in the world, waking up to seeing a strike on a nuclear plant and the great king down south rambling on. Tariffs, it's a challenge for us because as Indigenous people and somebody, a nation who's been after this land and this opportunity for generations, it's like, now's your time, now you have the ability to take this land and run and do something with it. But when you look at what's happening politically, you look at this fast tracking of resources, which is kind of great for business, but tough on rights and title. I think some mornings you wake up and it's like, what a time to be a leader. What a time to own an industrial site with a deep water port. But then when you turn on the news and you feel like everything's tanking and you look at the political strife that's happening right now, the biggest challenge for us is maintaining relationships, to have those deep discussions and to have them in a way that creates that peace that Dallas was talking about today. And that's always challenging when you're talking to a corporation, a large corporation. It's really hard to build that trust. And for our people, it comes down to breaking bread, coming to the territory, understanding one another. So I think our biggest challenge right now is the tensions and the opportunities that we see, where we'd like to look at fast tracking of permits and processes and look at the opportunities to work with hydro and get power to the site. But it's also doing it in a way that meets our ta'au, which is our constitution. That's our values, our traditional values, that looks 210 years out. We have a 7-generation planning process. So as Chief Dan George says, take up the pen, but also hold the feather. So I think our challenge right now is that, we're really running with the pen and trying to get economic development happening when we have all of these holding costs of a big site looming overhead. But how would we manage that with our teachings and our core values intact? And how do we get along with our neighbors in a case where, the city mayor and there's tensions around name change, there's tensions around residential school denialism, and it just seems like you get stuck in the mud. But when you lead with your heart and don't turn on the news in the morning, I have a little bit more hope.
That's good advice, Erik. Just don't turn on the news. Any additions to that? I know, Tina, one of the things that we had talked about earlier maybe wasn't a current challenge, but historically, in hindsight, when the business was developing, we talked a little bit about the challenges of bringing all communities on side. In hindsight, were there things that you learned that you could apply now or do apply now to help make sure everyone agrees with the direction the business is going?
Yeah, very definitely. 40 years ago, when we purchased North Sask Forest Products and started Mystic Management and started harvesting our own timber and our own forest allocation area, it's about the same time that mechanized logging came in, and we were shifting from select logging with skidders, with line skidders, and moved to, the bunchers and the processors. And it was a huge shock for people in our nation. So, one day they'd drive by an area and the trees are all standing. They'd come back later in the day and it's flat. Everything is gone. So imagine this, 9 nations that had moved forward on purchasing a sawmill because the leadership saw the foresight of what this could become and what it could impact. But at the same time, everything stopped dead because we had nations blockading their own company and saying, you're not going to do this to the land. So the very big learning out of all of that was around communication, about ensuring that your nations are coming along with you, ensuring, Erik was talking about the 7 generations of planning. When you get into a business, sometimes you don't have the opportunity to do that, but we realized we needed to slow down. And this is kind of how Mystic Management has developed its relationship with community. We developed co-management boards so that all land users could speak directly to the forests that might be harvested in their territory. We just created an atmosphere where communities, where trappers, where all these different groups of people, land users, felt comfortable that they could come forward and that their story could be heard. And we've integrated and kept that as part of all of our processes as we move through business development, because if the communities are not supportive, if the communities don't feel that it's beneficial and that the environment is going to be sustained the way that they want it to be sustained, we still have issues with people not understanding that trees are renewable, so they have to come in. We sit down with them, we talk to them, we spend time in community. You know, so that was a very big learning for us, was the communication piece. Even as Indigenous, you know, it's 100% Indigenous owned company, but yet our own nations that were members of it were actually blockading because they wanted us to remember what was really important in this whole thing, which wasn't the possibility of money, and it wasn't even the possibility of jobs. It was the environmental sustainability.
Really wise words and great lessons in hindsight that help improve moving forward. I've sat in a couple of those community meetings, and they're very powerful, and it gets right into the maps. The maps get out on the table, and the hard conversations are had, and so great learning lessons. Alex, as you come from so far away, I definitely would like to ask a question specific to the jurisdiction in Quebec that you're operating in, and maybe ask you, are there critical factors of operating in the Quebec context that add to the success, or maybe not so much?
Yeah, the auction system I was talking about earlier is the reason we came to life. The company was created in 2020, right in the COVID crisis. When you say timing is everything, it was really in this time because we managed to get our hands on a few lots, and we were able to sell it to industrials because, as you can remember, the timber market went crazy high in those years. So this was a big opportunity for us, and then we developed a partnership with you. After that, we changed our strategy so we can grow together. I would have liked to jump on Tina's intervention with the challenges, because I was talking about the forestry legislation in place right now. There's a new legislation in talks right now, a new reform, and some members of the nation in Quebec a little group are making blockades just like you, and we were blocked on our own land by another nation, not from our nation. So people just want to say things got to change. They need to be reassured, like you said. Sometimes misconceptions of the forest industries, we just have to talk the dialogue. I think Dallas yesterday talked about dialogue, and it went directly to my heart. So the challenge right now is the context with the people that just wants to be involved in the discussion. But I think, from my point of view, a new legislation is necessary, because the main problem in forestry in Quebec right now is the lack of predictability, and it has an impact on the land and on the relations.
Good points. And business, especially forestry, any business loves predictability and certainty, but like you said, never closing those doors of communication seems to be such an important theme moving forward. So I think I will shift gears a little bit, looking at time, maybe to see some of the Slido questions here. One that's kind of near to my heart, so I'm totally biased, is around mentoring. So I would love to ask the question of the panel of, are we doing enough to ensure that Indigenous youth can become forest professionals and have a real voice in defining forest management and conservation goals, and mentoring and having a space for youth councils or apprenticeships? I'd be curious to know if what your business approach is to mentoring.
I could start off with that one. Being from Thunder Bay, it's a small community, 100,000 people. There's a lot of infrastructure going on between, power projects, dam projects, things like that. We struggle with, having qualified tradesmen from the mechanical sector. So our company right now, we're in the process of working with the college to develop a mechanical shop in Thunder Bay where we can train more individuals through apprenticeships to be mechanics. So today I think we got about 15 mechanics that work for us. Over half of them, more than half of them, are still apprentices, whether they're in level 1, 2, 3, or 4. So that is one of our biggest challenges today. And also from an operations standpoint, the operators are becoming an issue as well, because Nobody is coming into the heavy equipment field. It's becoming harder and harder, so we're hiring younger and younger individuals, and we're training them right from start. So I know my community, Fort William First Nations, is working with other communities, other nations close by to develop a training ground for the sawmill, for the forestry sector. So I'm really hoping that'll come through.
Awesome.
Well, my traditional territory, I don't know if you've heard of the community of Meadow Lake, but between Meadow Lake and northwestern Saskatchewan, there's like 18,000 people, right? And 3 mills, a pulp mill, an OSB, and our lumber mill. So the push back and forth between all 3 of us on who's hiring who is pretty strong. But, in this instance, I think we're all trying to do things to I know at our lumber mill, the same thing that Dale is saying here around apprenticeships. The people that are coming to work in the mill are 18 years old. They've never had a job. The safety, all of those things are things that we've had to build up and be ready for. I think one of the things, though, that I would like to say about this whole thing is, this is a place where industry has to step up. If you really want to do something about reconciliation, if you really want to make a difference, this is absolutely a place that all industrial partners, all companies like the First Nations companies that are all up here, we all have a role to play in this. We need to make sure that our young people are aware that the jobs are there, and we need to start making space for them and not be the 1980s employers that figure, oh, crap, that guy's just going to come in and he's going to do the job, and if he doesn't, I'll just kick him out the door and I'm going to hire somebody else. Because there is nobody else to hire out there. We really have to start working together as industry, as Indigenous communities, because where are the young people? The majority of them are Indigenous young people that are not transitioning into these jobs in a good way. So, and the education system. I always say, like in our area, Meadow Lake, they fall on their faces. Our high school, we've got 3 mills. Probably 600 employees work just in the mill. Never mind all the people that do harvesting, hauling, and reforestation and all of that. Our high school does not have one single forestry program. I'm like, what the, is going on here? So I really think at that leadership level, at that industry level, we need to start demanding better, and we need to start creating these opportunities for young people.
Well said. Okay, so I sadly see we are gearing down a bit here, so I'm going to open the panel one by one for our last question, which is, in 30 seconds, what would be your one key takeaway that could help inform companies in the audience at large of what best practices look like?
Yeah, have a good Indigenous relations person. When you're dealing with a corporation and you're looking to get into a community, you're already coming from a place of mistrust. So having a pretty face and a nice voice, coming to knock on the door, you're like, why did they send that person, But it really opens the door, and frank discussions. Don't beat around the bush. We see so much beating around the bush, and as a project development coordinator, I'm the first stop. So we get about 5 sales a week. So be straightforward, don't beat around the bush, and be honest and open and truthful, and lead with your heart when you're coming to our communities with an ask. Because you're not the first person that week with an ask, right?
Well said. Thanks, Erik. Tina?
I think I'd 100% echo that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you come to the community and you want or need something from the community, or you want the community's partnership, you need to be honest about that. And you need to actually make the effort to get out to the community, to learn and understand. I've had so many people say to me, well, would it be okay if I went there? Indigenous communities welcome visitors. We're happy to share our culture. We're happy to share our food. And most of all, we're happy to have you listen with an open mind. You know, we're not stupid enough to think that, oh, we're going to get everything that we ask you for or that we demand, but we need you to listen, because that's the basis of the development of the trust relationship. And let me tell you, once you develop a trust relationship with a First Nations community, you're going to have a very good partner, because they're going to do anything that they can do to help you as a partner, because it's the way that we are, right? We're trying to grow our communities, trying to grow our young people, trying to grow our elders, and at the same time, when we build a trust relationship, we bring you into our family fold, and we try to grow you as well.
I'll quickly just touch on that. I agree, Tina, and that's only speaking from my partnership with the two First Nations that is a part of the Dallan group. They trusted the partnership from day one in 2014, and here we are 11, 12 years later with the partnership with them, and I mean the same with Domtar, Resolute. At the time, they trusted the partnership, and although it's a competitive bid process, we still worked our way at being in there. But if I could also say just quickly, instead of including the First Nations, we gotta like co-create. So there's more to just the partnership.
Yeah.
Building long lasting.
Perfect.
For me, I think people just want to be involved right at the beginning, at the start of every big project on our land. Quickly, together, I believe that we can do human management of the resources of the land here in Canada.
Thank you so much for all of your time and wise words there. I think we're at time, unfortunately, but folks will be here, so come by and visit them. I'm sure there's lots more detail they could provide around some of the partnerships and opportunities and network together. I want to thank the organizers at this point, and of course the panelists who came from very far away in some cases. So we appreciate it, and I hope it was a helpful and valuable session for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.